Welcome everyone to the EULCS post-game I'll be right back. Welcome everyone to the EULCS post-game lobby. I am here with the Fisho, with Sheepy, and in just 1 second...
An empty chair.
Trevor Quickshot Henry is going to... This is not as easy as it looked. This is... Okay, there we go. Trevor will be joining us. Wow, that series wrapped up in the end in favor of Splice. I have to say, even though I thought that they had a good chance before the series, after seeing Game 4, I was worried about Splice's chances, but they pull off a monumental win. What did it come down to for you guys in Game 5?
Well, I really think that Misfit overall tried to turn out, with the change of pick and bans better, but I think Splice, when they picked up the Vayne early like this, they somehow made it work, and it's really weird because Misfit seems super dysfunctional in games where they just don't know what to do. And in this game, they just didn't seem to know how to handle the Vayne, and every team fight they just jumped into, Big elephant in the room is, of course, that they lost to Caps' Vayne in their semifinal. So
yeah, I mean, I think the last game was purely decided when Kobe picked up 3 kills in that fight, which was a completely unnecessary fight for Misfit to take in the first place, but it kind of describes their playoff run. Yeah. Because it's been a run
this fight here was really
that's the fight, yeah. That's the fight we're getting. Like, you look at minimap, the Maokai is not even there yet. He just joined now. The fight is already over, and a lot of great coaches will pause the game before this fight and say, why are you taking this fight when your top laner is not there and the enemy top laner is? You're literally going 4v5. But to me, it just describes the playoff run for Misfits. It's never back down, always chase, and take extremely questionable fights.
I would love to go a bit deeper into the playoff run of Misfits and then maybe Denier interviewing just a bit, but I do also want to sing the praises of Splice, a team that was up against it, that has surprised many with their playoff run in spring, and I think surprises many today by going to the next round when they're up versus a Misfits. So what do we attribute this success to in this first series, at least from Splice? Who stepped up for them?
I think Kobe played really, really strong, and I was expecting more from Niski, but I think he was playing in some series really strong as well. Outside of this, I think Odoamne in the last 3 games was picking up a lot of pace as well. And Odoamne was really somebody who I questioned if he could actually perform on that level, and he definitely did, so props to him. And yeah, he seemed very happy in the interview afterwards.
They were in good spirits, and Odoamne is rarely in very happy, smiley series, Trevor, and that's when he still has to play 2 best-of-5. So
I mean, he didn't really smile. He was...
Look, the thing is, just before we went on air, there was a lot of energy, there was a lot of excitement. Odo and Kobe were actually giving each other a bit of banter. And I think to go back to the question is, Odoamne stepped up in comparison to when we saw him in quarterfinals, but I think as a team, Splice were just a little bit more consistent. I felt like today Misfits made more mistakes that Splice were able to punish. And despite Misfits getting leads several games in a row, it didn't matter because Splice's game plan many times and many team fights went their way later.
We also talked about this during this series where we said when 2 teams are playing very scrappy against each other, whoever picks the easiest comp is normally the ones that end up winning the most games.
But the Vayne won.
Well, but the Vayne won not through fancy, 1-3-1 play. It was literally a 5 versus 4 team fight, engaged by the team with 4. And Vayne is like, boop, 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 thanks, I guess. Here's a triple kill, right? So, not to take anything away from Splice, but to me, Misfits keeps making the game really difficult for themselves. Like, all the time, with all the weird calls they're making engaging on every moment he has. Yeah. And I think Splice were just a lot better at actually sitting back, wait for the play, and then say, take this fight, yes, go. And then win the team fight. And the comps were good team fight comps.
Yeah, but I really have to give props to Maxlaw, who really surprised me in the series. I think in every game he was, maybe not in the Kindred versus Ghana game, but I think he was the stronger jungler. And, when we went into the game, I really thought that, Maxlaw on a carry position, like, for example, Kindred in the 1 game, I thought would work better. But what he's doing on Aatrox was really, really strong. He is somebody who's been picking up this champion more in this series. And, yeah, I'm really, really happy. Even though Misfit lost and we saw things that were not working out, I really want to point out Maxlaw as a strong.
I think I agree with you, but I also think that that's a sign of that all the rest wasn't working for Misfits. And unfortunately, I saw a couple of things today that I do not want to project too much because obviously I don't have any insight, but Alfari, after that game 1, he sits on stage. Mickey X quits out of the game and walks off stage sooner than he would have normally. They were broken, and it seemed like that was coming, and you could kind of sense it for a while in the second half of the split. And I wonder if when they started to do badly in the second half of the split, if they ever really got over it. We'll see tomorrow how good G2 is, obviously, but it's obviously very tragic, and I don't want to kick people when they are down, but for Misfits, a team that we expect a lot from, that went to Worlds for us, that looked great in the first half of the split.
9-0.
9-0. You have to wonder what happened, and I hope we will find out.
Yeah, I mean, we might never find out because a lot of the internal things don't go out into the public, right? But I think there were two highlights for this team during all of 2018, the 9-0 start and the 3-0 over G2 Esports. If you remove those two, everything was actually downhill. It was a failure for this team. Did not make playoffs in spring after replacing 2 players that they decided to replace.
Yeah.
And then drop 3-1 to Fnatic, 3-1 to Vitality in Madrid, and lose in the first round of the gauntlet. Like, for a team that went to Worlds, played a quarterfinal against SKT, this is a huge,
very
drop off.
competitively.
It's not OG like Worlds relegated thing, but
it's not quite that serious, but it is very similar to it because expectations after that quarterfinal series, after Misfits very famously almost take down SK Telecom, they opt into the roster swaps. They're very excited about it, failed to make playoffs, as you mentioned. But for a team to not develop, for a team that in the 2017 season was praised for support staff, for development, for training, for growth, that's what shocked me. Wasn't the downhill performance, but the fact that we didn't see it. There was that speed bump of 9-0, but it was a speed bump. The majority of the year has been a downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all agree that Misfit has the talent on the roster to really be strong, but I'm really wondering why they didn't come together as a team.
But how strong? How strong?
I think really
best
strong.
in Europe?
Better than going out in the first round of the gauntlet.
Was something that they could have expected as well.
Because I think at this point, some people will question that and say, do they actually have the talent on the roster to be the 3rd best team in Europe?
I think when a team goes 9-0 in summer, you have to say they've got to be in contention, at least top of the table.
Yeah.
But first round gauntlet, you're going to assume this is 6th best in Europe.
And look at the lineup. Mickey X, definitely somebody who I think is super talented. Even though in this series he underperformed and didn't do well. I mean, in our team he was really known for Gragas support, like the best Gragas support. But generally he was really, really smart. We saw it as well when they beat G2, like very, very convincingly as well. Their bot lane was just going off. Hans Sommer was argued as one of the best.
That's the most puzzling thing to me. The fact that, again, we're seeing G2 tomorrow. We don't really know what their strengths are, but that they cleanly kill off G2 so easily, and it all comes from the bottom lane. And, you know, you talk about Mickey X, but I also haven't seen Hansama today, for instance. For me, Senkox and Maxwell were some of the best players on the Rift.
Yeah, and I think, so the G2 matchup specifically that they played in quarters was just when no one in Europe would play Tahm Kench, and G2 Esports struggle against teams who would target bot lanes. And that's exactly what happened in that series, and that's exactly what Misfits wants to play against. It was a matchup made in heaven for them. And of course, G2 have been on a huge slump on their own, so that was a great win. But regarding the talent point, like, I look at Misfits now after all these weeks, and I say they have 2 inconsistent carries.
Oh, yes.
And that is the opposite of what a Fnatic will bring to the table.
What I do want to say is, just to sort of button up the discussion around where are they, top of the table, bottom of the table, I think at their best, when they play at their ceiling, when you look at what Senkox can do, when Mickey is engaging well, when Hans Sommer is stepping up on 80 carries, I think they can compete with the best in Europe. But their floor is significantly lower than the other top 6, and I think in that variation is why I have so many doubts in this.
Show a final point about this.
Well, and that's actually where, because I 100% agree with you, and that's kind of where I see the problem is, I don't think the team is smart enough to consistently hit their peak. Because too many things rely on feeling almost in game of like, let's go, let's just take this fight, and not actually, is this the correct time to fight? And then you have the, holy moly, best team in the world. What on earth is this? Why do you take a 4v5 team fight?
And in all honesty, I think I've also seen that from Splyce throughout the split. But when it mattered today in Game 5, Splyce pulled through, and that's what you have to congratulate them for. I want to button it up for Misfits. Ultimately, it is a huge disappointment for the organization and for every single player on that team this year. And they don't need us to tell them that. They have to be looking ahead. For us, they could have done more, but they didn't. Let's look ahead to the positive in Splyce then. Splyce does a great thing here, but they've only just started. Let's crown the player of the game, or of the series rather, before we go. That is Kobbe. Not very surprisingly, 62% of the votes on Varus and on Vayne. God damn it. The last remaining member of Splyce, as Trevor puts his seat down, the last remaining member on Splyce brought home the bacon.
Yes, he did. And as we talked about two inconsistent carries on the side of Misfits, we have to talk about a very consistent carry on the side of Splyce in Kobbe. I like the way they tried to just draft around him. They even trust him so much that in the final game, where your entire season is on the line, they pick Vayne.
Yeah.
And not like Vayne last pick.
No,
Just like pick Vayne.
There you go. This guy on Vayne, he might struggle slightly early, but we know he will carry late.
Do you think the comms
Yeah, I want to hear the
like
mic
the
check.
Caps
Like
comms?
Caps, trust me, I can
Trust
do
me,
this.
I can do this.
He's like, all right.
Xerxes like,
I
are
guess.
you sure? Is this going to win us the game? And Kobbe's like, hell yes. Boom.
There we go. Or he might have just said, if Caps can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then you can't really argue.
There
That's
we go.
true.
So,
Because that's how it works. If Caps can do
So I
it.
used to work with Faker picks. Like, if Faker's picking it, I can pick it.
so now Kobbe's Faker.
No, I didn't say that. I said if Faker can
Official.
pick a champion, other players say they can do it too.
All right, well, for as much...
Danish Faker.
So Splyce was also looking to end their year on a very positive. You want to get to Worlds. Every single player on every roster in every league only wants to get to Worlds. And they are a step closer. Don't get me wrong. But they have two more best of fives to play. Let's talk about the one tomorrow versus G2 Esports. I do want to remind people of the fact that in PGL, in Madrid, both members of Vitality and Fnatic went on record to say that they thought that Splyce had the best chance of winning the gauntlet because they thought that they were, for whatever reason, the best to start. And because of the run and the momentum, they were going to be unstoppable.
I didn't believe it. I did not believe it. I heard pro players saying that, and I heard it in the interviews. And this alarm bell went off in the back of my head. Like when you hear a pro player say, this champion's like not OP or this
when they
is
say
OP.
the unicorns of Vitality isn't
you
good.
Just take
Yes,
it with
they
a,
are.
you take it with a pinch of salt, right?
Yeah.
After seeing Splyce actually show up and take down Misfits, I'm a little bit more inclined to believe it. I'm surprised that both quarterfinalist teams that got knocked out are now facing off against versus, the fourth place Misfits, as opposed to what I was expecting to happen. But tomorrow's going to be do or die. I think whoever looks good tomorrow has a mighty, mighty task ahead of them where eventually when they play Schalke, because Schalke have adapted to every single opponent they have faced in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge hurdle. I don't know if the new context of how well Schalke played in the final was factored into this discussion. But for Splyce, I mean, Odo was extremely outspoken. He said, tomorrow we're going to look better, and tomorrow it's not going to be more difficult than it was today.
Oh, do you agree with that?
I think it will be an uphill battle because every day will be do or die tomorrow and the day afterwards. And honestly, even though that Splyce won today, it was not by a big margin. They won 2-3 against the Misfit that didn't seem super coherent as a team.
Yeah.
I still think that Splyce as a team came more together, and that's why they won today. I think G2 had a lot of time to prepare, saw exactly what's going to happen.
Such a big question mark.
Yeah.
They are
G2 is going to show up today.
A better G2 than the one we saw
Jeez.
against Misfit. We're going to get a much better G2 in my opinion. I'm not actually basing that on me thinking they're just going to be way stronger. I just think the matchup is better for them. Splyce are not the kind of team that will destroy your bottom lane whatsoever. They're not even that proactive early, which has actually been an issue for G2 against Misfits specifically. I think it's going to be a slower game with a lot more team fighting. So I expect, honestly, 5 games between them. And this is with the 3-0 G2 in mind. I just think this is a much better matchup compared to the Misfits one they played
I think
before.
Trevor already touched on it, but no team in European regionals history has ever fought back from the last or from being the first in the first round to making it to Worlds. But also, no round one has ever gone to 5 games. So Splyce have the, I don't know, chance.
They've already broken the curse.
Yeah, they can break other curses. So we'll look forward to that matchup tomorrow, another best of 5 of G2 versus Splyce. And I would like to play a little game with you guys, which is very topical. It's called Pick a Card. We do it sometimes here on PGL. There will be 3 options in a second. And Sheepy, since you are our guest, you can pick. All of them are
Pick the wrong card here.
Are players who are still
Like
in the gauntlet, so it'll give us a reason to talk about one of them. It's going to come up in just a second. I look like a bit of a fool.
So where are we looking? Are we looking there or there?
Over there.
Okay, fantastic.
Alrighty, so Sheepy, you can pick one of these.
Always gold card.
Gold card. There we go. The stun straight up.
I feel nervous.
I know.
Odo!
Well,
You already talked about
I
him.
can talk about him. Yeah, I think Odo didn't seem so strong in their match against Schalke. Honestly, was probably one of the main reasons that they lost. Redeemed himself, I think, in the first match today. Was not that strong, but in the last 3 games, really definitely somebody, who was stepping up. I think this guy in the beginning, playing now, I don't think suits him at all. This was like a 1-3-1 champions, and with Ryze in the meta, you just face somebody on the side lane that you just cannot win against. There's champions like Yasuo. I think there was not enough thought process in the pick and ban when he was picking those champions, but now he seemed way, way better.
Give him Ornn, give him Sion.
I think,
Dude, just pick tanks.
yeah, pick him tanks. He was like 2 levels up on Alfari, even level 3 levels up at some point. So yeah, I think give him tanks. Play around Kobe, play those teamfight comps, and honestly, Spice looks like a really strong
and
team.
let's also talk about kind of probably the desire of Odo Omni. This is a guy that went to Worlds and played in Madison Square Garden in the semifinal with H2K. This guy flies under the radar a lot, but I think Odo Omni has contributed a lot to EU LCS history over the years, and for him, it must be huge that he is now closer to
And
Worlds.
before the game against Schalke, he was actually saying, last year was the first time I didn't make Worlds. This year, I really don't want to have to repeat that. And I think this desire is really what drives people to greatness. And really great to hear that from him. And hopefully, tomorrow he can show up even more.
So interestingly, that was a yellow card, wasn't it? So just for sake, is that a Schalke player and is that a G2 player? Can I pick another one, production?
G2 is red. How does that make any sense?
Give me a blue one. Red is G2.
So predictable.
Damn it.
All right.
Okay.
Well, 2 guys
Well
who
done,
will be
production.
very important in
Well
the
done,
next 2
production.
days. So let's quickly touch on them. Perks
This game is rigged.
is the franchise player for G2. He is the guy that also picked a lot of the members that are on the team this year, as the team has come out
He's
to
the
say.
only one of those 3, Upset is the only one of those 3 that doesn't have to improve upon their last performance that we have seen.
Good point.
Odo needed to prove from his quarterfinals he can do better. Perks, I think, has a lot more responsibility on the team, so I want to be a little bit more forgiving on the lack of lane kingdom. He ain't the king no more in the mid lane, and I want to see that Perks come back. For this matchup tomorrow, Perks, Odo, Kianan, seeing these guys stepping up and seeing whether or not G2 can also show development and growth that Splice showed today is a huge question mark for me. But like Deficio said, playstyle-wise, maybe that benefits G2. Maybe that alone is going to be enough for the 4-time ULCS.
Yeah, I mean, G2 is a team like Splice that we haven't seen for a couple of weeks that have been able to train a lot. A lot will come down to jungle mid synergy. Jankos, which Jankos are we going to get?
That is definitely a big question mark.
Brome, they go back to...
They're trying to play funnel again. No, yeah, Jankos is obviously going to be probably the biggest question mark. I think why Maxwell was great today. Like, Cerza did his job in all the games. He was never a liability. Jankos can be a liability, which is kind of his problem. I think Wonder in the top lane, well, I'm not sure if he's going to play carries or not, but I actually think Oramne might be under a lot more pressure. I don't remember a single top lane gank in the early game in this series. Maybe there was like 1 or something. It was just farm fest. I think tomorrow, if you are G2, you could start seeing more focus towards that lane, and that could heavily benefit them if they can.
Are we getting similar games like the ones we've seen across the world tomorrow? Is it going to be both early game and mid game team fighting out the wazoo?
I hope so.
Definitely going to get a lot of team fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, so playing 1-3-1 now is super difficult because 1, there's a ton of engage in the meta. 2, it's very easy to go Baron at 20 minutes. And when you go Baron at 20 minutes, the split push comp is like, well, we got to go stop them. Bam, you have a team fight.
Yeah.
So the style we're seeing from almost every team is make sure you have a strong 5v5.
If you look at that, then you have to say Splice have the better cards. They did it today. They've always been good at late game team fighting, and it's not something that we've seen from G2 this split. It was funnel in the beginning. It was one or the other lane getting ahead. I think that's an interesting way to look at tomorrow.
I would really like to see also Perks doing some more plays, because last time he played in the series against Misfit, I think everybody from G2 didn't perform outstandingly, but especially from him, he is probably one of the best mid laners that the West has, and rightfully so. He was staying in G2 and was really one of the front players. And when I see him doing like mechanical hiccups, this is just with LeBlanc or something where it's chased down on top side. This is just stuff where
it's a surprise.
Yeah, it's really a surprise, because generally he is the guy who is going to outplay you. And I hope that we haven't seen them for 3 weeks. I think that they kind of went into the into the training chamber and
I mean,
came out stronger.
I think it's always very interesting to see with mid laners. You know, when Perks came in, we looked at him like we do Caps now, right? It was flashy plays, it was controlling the lane, it was all over the map. But there's a lot of responsibilities that get on your shoulders as you go further in a career, right? You get new teammates at a certain point. You have to concentrate on different things. You have to work on your shot calling. You have to work on this and that. And I always wonder what's going to happen, like to Caps and to the players, in a couple of years, and if he's ever going to say, you know what, now it's back to me. Now it's back to my lane or not. It's very interesting, but I think it has to do with a lot more than just
oh yeah, I mean,
mechanics.
so much depends on the team you have when you are developing as a young player. When he entered with Trick, they couldn't play around the bot lane because it was Hybrid and Emperor, and they were like just okay, you know, and Kikis was just a tank player top. So they had to go through mid. It was that or nothing. Then when Sven and Mithy joined, you started seeing the Perks that was a bit more on control mages, was playing a little bit less crazy because he didn't need to, because he knew we have the late game every single time. And I think Caps last year wanted to be the big playmaker, got slapped over the hand quite a few times because teams would just kill him 10 million times. And he started trying to back down a little bit until this year when it was more about him. And Gito can and will probably try and do the same. I wonder if the Perks we had in the first spring split he played, where he tried to go all in 24/7, can return, or if he's too smart, I'm almost going to say now at this point, where he thinks a lot about what is the correct play. You know, I don't want to, gamble too much. Caps is gambling everything. Like,
yeah, and he's winning
every play.
Hand.
Yeah, if you have great mechanics, you win most of the 50-50s.
Are you saying Perks doesn't have great mechanics?
I think right now Caps mechanically is a step above Perks. But I think Perks can be a smarter player.
Yeah, I also think this is not a discussion we should get into at this point. We're talking about if G2 can win the
I want to see what
tomorrow.
it does against Niski.
Yeah.
Because Niski showed up against Nuke Duck, when they played, and that was a really exciting, good mid lane matchup. The playoff buff Niski, it is maybe a meme now at some point, but it's also very, very true.
No, I
so
think
it's not going to be
what do you call it,
easy.
backstage, Trevor?
It's not going to be...
nerf?
No, we're talking about different player. That's
Anti-playoff
Jizuke.
Yeah, but you said it about Niski.
He gets a playoff buff. I want to see what Perks does against this. It's not going to be an easy matchup, and it is very exciting. And then I also think the next big question that I have is when you look to Sunday is like, what Upset and Schalke are going to do? They have less time to prepare, the little bit of unknown of which team they're going to play to play on Sunday. So how well are they prepared? How
they have more
much do
time
they
to
have
prepare.
to do? Theoretically, for all three teams, right? But less specialist.
Yeah,
Also-
but the team who they're facing will have zero time.
Yeah, but
Because-
official, for 2 days, you come from Madrid, you were on a high, you lost, but you still played well. Everyone's like, oh, Schalke's the best, they're the best, and whatever, they're going to win the
That's
Gauntlet
being a pro
easy.
player right
See
there.
today's
Practice
series.
For 2 days, you see.
Yeah, but none of
crazy-
us really believed in Misfits.
Let us bring up this Wonder tweet. He tweeted, today is just a show match. We will go through tomorrow. Like all these, I mean, he was just trolling.
Of
but
course.
for Schalke, I think they won't even troll about it. They won't even send out, I think, tweets about it because they know how important it is. And they
I agree.
know they have it right here.
I'm simply saying that no matter how we try and spin this, they will have the best
Yes.
odds, the most time to prepare, because they can watch the entire game, talk during the entire game about what to do, and then play it in
Are
the
you
day
saying
after.
you're back on?
I am
train?
so back on the train. I'm not allowed to conduct it anymore because Trevor is sitting there.
The tickets are expired.
I don't need a ticket,
Only
man.
holder
Okay.
I'm going to
tickets,
play
which
Red
we'll
Dead
show you
Redemption.
on
You can probably
Sunday.
jump back on that train. You don't even need a ticket anymore. I'm hanging loose at the back. And I'm screaming for the duck, baby. He's winning. He's going to Worlds.
Alrighty, well,
Calling
you're
it already.
screaming for the duck.
No bias.
You guys, we're going to sign off soon. Tomorrow, we will, of course, have the second round of our Gauntlet. Best of 5 between G2 Esports or Splice for the pleasure to play Schalke 04 on Sunday and for the 3rd seed of Europe at Worlds. For tonight, though, you can head over to LCS on twitch.tv/Riot Games. Echo Fox versus
Predictions?
Clutch Gaming is about to start. 5 games because today everything's going
The
to Riot
quickest
Games.
3-0 you'll ever have seen in Gauntlet.
I hope not, because every single regional qualifier series has gone to 5 games. Deficio, ask me how many series there have been.
1.
3. Because there's 2 regional qualifier series that happened in LCK. They both went to 5 games in today.
Oh, right.
100% quick stat.
I thought you meant just in Europe.
Wait, I'm
Echo-
confused.
Regional
That's big.
qualifier.
But there's only was one regional qualifier.
No, you talked about 2 days ago.
LCK.
There was another one.
LCK is playing their qualifier
so do you
2
mean
shots.
because they're in the time zone?
First, I thought he
Wait.
meant today only. Then I thought he meant
No.
EU only. But he actually
said
meant
regional
all 3
qualifier.
regional
Okay, you get another
qualifier games.
chance.
You're
Trevor,
all right.
give me the quick stat again.
100% of the 2018 regional qualifier gauntlets All of the series have gone to 5 games.
Okay.
And there have been 3 series.
Quickest 3-0 you'll ever see in your life.
Echo Fox will give me 5, I believe.
Okay, there we go.
First game is done in 22 minutes.
Also, if it's 3 games or if it's 5 games, which we sincerely hope for our colleagues over in the NALCS, there will be a rebroadcast of the EU LCS, and by then, you can watch G2 versus Splice. We will go live at 4:30 p.m. CEST for Ready Check.
And very quick advice, skip game 1, watch from game 2, and it's going to be great.
Ignore what he says.
Watch everything you want. Don't listen to Martin. Good night, everyone. We will be... I have lost it, and we still have 2 days. We're going to get some sleep. Tomorrow, catch us here. Again, League, let's go.